Hey guys, I have some sad news. Beloved musician here in town, guitar player Doug Wilson from the band Sounds Under Radio. He also played with Amy Ashley and a few other bands, passed away on August 18th. Some kind of accident in his home. It's a very sad situation. He was a young guy. He was a really nice guy. I've known him for a long time, and he was always very, very friendly and an amazing musician, and really, really just a lovely, lovely guy. It's very, very sad to hear of his passing. But he did leave behind a wife who's pregnant with their unborn son, and people have set up a GoFundMe for them, and I'll put a link to it at the bottom of the text of this podcast, and also on our Facebook page. How Did I Get Here's Facebook page. Get over there and check it out. See if you can. I know it's hard times for everyone. People are just now getting back to work and doing things again, but anything you can kick in to his wife and unborn son would definitely be greatly appreciated. And let's hear a little music from Sounds Under Radio. Doug's going to be missed. I read all the tributes that people wrote about him. He was a very beloved member of the scene. He was always really, really kind and always top-notch. I mean, every time I saw him play, I thought he was amazing. So my heart goes out to his family and to his close friends, the guys from Sounds Under Radio. Doug's going to be missed. We'll be missing you, Doug. Rest in peace, my man. Here's some music from Sounds Under Radio.
Cold and
Attention, Austin guitar players and bass players. Are you in need of setup or repair on your axe? Well, I have the guy for you, gang. That's Jason Swedberg over at J. Scott Lutherie, and you can find him at J. Scott Lutherie on Instagram. Now, if you listen to the show, you know I've been talking about Jason for years. Why is that? Because I've been taking my guitars to Jason for over 20 years. Not only does he do the best job, but he has the best prices and the fastest service in town. Again, find him at J. Scott Lutherie on Instagram. Not only is he doing an amazing job repairing and setting up guitars, he is now building guitars. That's right. He built me an SG Junior, which I have, and it sounds amazing. It feels great. It's the very first SG Junior he ever built. I've got a J. Scott Lutherie SG Junior. You can go see him at J. Scott Lutherie on Instagram. Get a guitar built. Get your guitars fixed. Get them set up. It's time, man. They've been hanging on the wall all through COVID. Now it's time to get them out, get them fixed, and get out there and play. J. Scott Lutherie on Instagram. Let's get down. Hey gang, we all know Spotify has become the ultimate app destination for music lovers. I have an account and I love it. I find new music by following Tastemaker playlists, and I make my own playlist that I share featuring music from guests that has been on the show. But did you know that aside from millions of songs, Spotify now has all of your favorite podcasts, including How Did I Get Here? Yes, all of your podcasts are available on Spotify. Just go to Spotify.com or download the app from your app store, and don't forget to follow How Did I Get Here? That's Spotify. Millions of songs, thousands of podcasts. Let's get down.
And you may ask yourself, well, how did I get here?
It's time for How Did I Get Here? And now here is your host,
All right. Hello, I'm Johnny. I'm your host. Welcome to the show. I hope you guys all had a good weekend, whatever it is you did this weekend. Me, I was down with coronavirus. If you listened to the show with the bell sounds last week, I contracted coronavirus, tested positive last week, and I went down. Yeah, I was tired. I was exhausted. I'm vaccinated, so I didn't get the full extent of it. Of course, I lost my sense of taste and smell, and that's what tipped me off. Because I was having cold symptoms for a week before, kind of run down, sore throat, stuffy nose, and then all of a sudden, last week, lost my taste of sense and smell, of taste and smell, and knew I had it. Tested positive. I spent Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in bed. Now this is Monday. I've got some Zoom meetings today that I've been doing, a couple podcasts I'm doing, and I feel a lot better. So I want to thank everyone that reached out to see how I was feeling, and wishing me luck and offering to bring me stuff. Thank you, all of you. I really appreciate that. That was really nice of you. I used Favor. I got on the Favor app. Had a number of free delivery scenes going on. I seem to have quit smoking as of last week, so that's another thing. A little side effect. Quit smoking the cigarettes. Doing this Juul thing, but it doesn't seem as harmful as the smoking. I don't know, dude. Eventually, I'm gonna have to give up the Juul thing too, but I am off cigarettes, and I'm not totally freaking out. I've had some anxious days, so I'm laid up in bed. I feel like shit with this coronavirus thing. I can't taste, I can't smell, and then I'm also like craving a cigarette. And then there were times yesterday on Sunday when I would do something and then go to reach for my cigarettes to go have one outside, and I realized, oh, I'm not doing that now. So I'm sucking on this Juul like one of those guys that just got a vape thing. I was holding it in bed. I fell asleep with it in bed on Saturday night. So I'm that guy now. Anyway, coronavirus. Hopefully I'll test negative this week. I've got a show this Sunday. If you guys aren't doing anything, this Sunday, August 29th, I will be playing at 6 p.m. at Meanwhile Brewing over here in Austin. If you live here, it's a free show. It's an outside thing, so it's safe. I won't be contagious anymore. Come on out, see me play. It's going to be a lot of fun. My friend Nathan Harlan from Endosheen and The Big Fix and all these other bands, he plays at 7. I play 6 to 7. He plays 7 to 8. Come on out. Free show outside, Sunday fun day. This Sunday, August 29th at Meanwhile Brewing. Come on out and do it. What else is going on? Playing with Skyrocket on Saturday, hopefully, if I test negative. Oh, guys, as soon as I test negative, though, I'm going to be pretty happy because I'm up for a booster in December. And so hopefully I'm kind of covered for a while. You know what I mean? Because one of the things I will say about getting this coronavirus and testing positive after spending so much time, well over a year, almost a year and a half of dying to not test positive. When you finally test positive, there's a relief. You're like, okay, finally I got it. Thank God I'm vaxxed. Once again, if you're not vaccinated, get out there and get vaccinated, man. Wear a mask. Be careful. Let's all try and do this thing the right way, because obviously no one's going back to just full-on quarantine hiding in their house, okay? Stuff is being canceled, and rightfully so. There's some stuff that's being canceled that people are like, okay, well, hey, we don't really have to do this. We can do this later when it's safer to do it. That's totally cool. But also people are still doing things. We got to get out there and make a living. I did get a message from someone that pointed out that in the last episode of the podcast, when I was talking to Noel and Andre from the Bell Sounds, Noel did give me a little bit of a condescending, when I was telling her I was out playing shows every weekend with Skyrocket, we had to get tested every Wednesday to make sure we didn't have coronavirus. She very, it wasn't super nice, but she said, I don't know how you're doing it, dude. And it's because I got to make a living. So I'm a professional musician and I make a living out there playing shows. And so I got to get out there and play them. So everyone else does too. We all got to get back to life, but we got to do it safely. All right. So that's enough of my rapping. That's enough of my rapping. Gang, I have an amazing show for you today. My dear friend, William Harries Graham, who I've known his whole life, has just released a brand new EP called Plainfield Tapes. It just came out on Friday. It's fucking great. Get out there and check out WilliamHarriesGraham.com. He's doing some shows. He's doing some stuff at Continental Club. I know he's doing a private show that he was talking about, a house show for the release of it. I'm not sure if that happened or if that's going to happen or what else is going on. But Plainfield Tapes, the EP, absolutely fantastic. There's a song called Claire, gorgeous song. I'll play it on here. William's been coming on this show since he was like 14 years old. Like in the first year of the show, he came on, he was 14. Now he's in his 20s, living the dream. He's making incredible music. As always, I had the luxury of getting to work with him in the artist development program with Austin Music Foundation a couple years ago, and I got to play on a song of his that came out on that record and actually is on the St. Clair EP that just came out earlier this year. William Harries Graham is like an unstoppable artistic force. The guy's always taking a turn for something, always working on something. He's changing his sound. He's changing the way that he writes songs. He's changing what he writes about. And this record, Plainfield Tapes, was definitely made during quarantine in Massachusetts, in a specific room, in a specific house that I think I was talking to him in when we did the podcast, because this one's done over Zoom. Anyway, I'm a huge fan of William Harries Graham. I'm very proud to call him my dear friend. I'm very, very proud to call him my colleague. And once again, I guess without further ado, for probably the 6th or 7th time on the show, please enjoy my conversation with the incredibly brilliant and always entertaining William Harries Graham. Let's get down.
Well, I don't care if you're wasting my time. It's just a compliment to be here. Compliment to be here. And I don't care if you stare out the window all night. It's just the way things always been. There's a picture on your wall of the first.
How's it going?
It's well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Considering.
Yeah. Did you came down and played some shows, right?
Yeah. What
do you do? Wait, real quick. What are you doing in Vermont?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm up in Vermont pretty much for the whole summer. I've been up here since this has been my home base for the summer since like the end of May.
Yeah.
And I've come back twice to do some pre-production stuff and to play 2 shows that I did, or 3 shows I did at the Continental Club, my home. But I've been up in Vermont working on the EP actually that we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, Plainfield Tapes
as well. Plainfield Tapes, and the reason why I'm in Vermont is a lot of different reasons. Partly though, it's just I was in Austin for over a year, and I was like, I love this city. This is my home. I need to leave now.
Yeah.
You know,
remember why I like
as
it.
musicians. Yeah, we're like, you know, we are used to going out on the road. We're used to like being able to visit other places, and like, you know, after being kind of in one place for so long, I was like, I just feel like I need to kind of unplug for a little while, spend some time like just in another place essentially. Yeah. So I was lucky enough to for my girlfriend's family to have a recently moved to like central Vermont. So we're close to like Montpelier area. And we're in a town called Plainfield, which is where the name from the EP comes from. And kind of was lucky enough they have this like kind of renovated house that was in the family for a while. And there's renovated half of it that we've been living in. And I was able to set up a full studio over there and kind of dive into recording this EP and then doing a lot of pre-production for another project that I'm working on. So
can you say what the other project is?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
you want to come to it later? Is that what you're trying to say?
No.
Okay,
Let's. Okay. I'll announce it right now. I'll give you the name. It's going to be. So I released an EP. So the last full length I released was Jake's back in 2019, the beginning of 2019, and then I released St. Clair, which was kind of in between the release of Jake's and the recording of Jake's was when that was recorded, and then kind of mixed, mastered, did all that through the pandemic, and then Plainfield Tapes was fully kind of in pandemic up here, recording, written entirely during the pandemic. But the next full-length album is what I've been working on for pre-production, which is going to be called Annie's House. And I don't have a release date on that yet, but I'm starting to dive really deeply into basically figuring out all of the instrumentation for that. All of the songs for that have been written over the last year or so. And will in some ways take cues from the Plainfield Tapes EP in the sense that it's kind of a diversion from anything I've done before. But at the same time, I think we'll be going back to some of my roots of diving into a little bit more of like rock and embracing that. But also the next record is going to be probably heavily driven by drums, bass, keyboards, and then acoustic guitar in the background, keeping it going, and then all of the usual like electric lines over it. But rather than that, like guitar rock that I've kind of been known for a really long time, you know, I've been kind of trying to push my boundaries as far as that, which, you know, with the last EP I did, and then this EP, we're both, you know, acoustic, very different. I was going to
say you've achieved whatever level of dreamy stillness on Plainfield Tapes that you've been going with the last EPs. Like you definitely fully realized dreamy stillness on this, and it's gorgeous.
Yes.
It's gorgeous.
Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you. Yeah, and so you know, I think that I am incapable of stagnating ever, which I feel like you probably know about me. I mean, so I've been very incapable of stagnating ever. I mean, this is the second podcast you and I have done this year. Right. I don't know how many times I've been on the show at this point. I feel like I'm probably getting up there at this point.
I think you've been coming on since you were like 14.
14. I feel like we're probably 13. At around like six or seven episodes.
Yeah. I don't know how many.
Yeah. It doesn't matter. So, you know, I think that I was simultaneously working on the songs for Plainfield Tapes, which I didn't know would become Plainfield Tapes at the time because I was writing these songs that were very different from anything. And then whatever this next project will be, which I feel like it's still very early for that. So I feel like there'll be another chance for us to talk about that eventually. But, I think it's worth noting that it's not the opposite, but it is a different approach, where with this, I was really like, let's just like actually see like what happens if I set up a mic and I record pianos and I record acoustic guitar and vocals. And like, I'm really was like where St. Clair, I dipped my toe in. I think that with Plainfield tapes, I didn't care at all anymore about what I was supposed to be doing. It was more about, I'm just going to like create some stuff. And I honestly, when I started working, I didn't know that Plainfield tapes would become a full EP like this. I didn't know it would be a full 5 songs on the physical release, with another single that, I don't know when this is going out, but will probably have already been out at that point, which will be The 7 Lives, which is just a single that's kind of related to Plainfield tapes. Isn't directly on the EP, but I feel like it's like almost like a sister song to them. So it was this thing where I kind of just allowed myself to create something for myself, and try and push myself in that way of kind of limiting. Giving yourself a box to work in sometimes gives you more, which I feel like is almost like become a cliche thing to say, but is 100% true.
There's no cliche to it. It's true. When you give yourself limitations, somehow you become more creative. And I feel like, I'm sure you're recording on computers. Everybody records on computers now, right? But it's sort of the way you use it when you're going into it that kind of defines what you're trying to say artistically, right? So there's like an organic music thing to you, and even though you are recording in these things, they're very, very, very personal, and kind of while the songs are dreamy, there is a directness to it because it is just you and an instrument or two, and maybe some wackiness going on in the background in a mellow way, but it really it like they're very clear to me. I don't know. It's really great.
No, I completely agree. I think that kind of in response to that, when I was working on St. Clair, I was still dipping my toe in with Logic, but largely using GarageBand still for recording.
Right.
And so this was a departure in the sense that when I was mixing and mastering St. Clair in Logic, I learned a lot and made a lot of mistakes. And I think that going back now, I would change things still and, maybe re-release one day, if the pandemic ever ends. But we'll see about that.
Like the limitless, there's a limitlessness to, like, if you have a 4-track cassette machine, you can squeeze out, 12 tracks the most.
But here's what I'll say is that going into this, I created a single project inside. I mean, this is getting into a little bit of music nerdery, right? But I created a single Logic project. And I gave myself 5 channels, essentially. And those 5 channels would each be a single recording of vocals and guitar into one mic, would be an overdubbed double vocal, would be another guitar, and then would be either live keyboards or sampled keyboards, maybe another guitar part in there, but limited to 5.
Right.
And so it isn't recorded on a 4-track, but I recorded like that. I ran it through a J37 tape machine emulator, essentially,
cool.
To give it a warmth. I feel like it's absurd that we've gotten to this point where we're running perfect recorded things through things to make it sound slightly worse, but it does do something.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of the mastering was running through that kind of stuff. But it was that kind of thing where, it's really easy to build a track where you have 20 different tracks on a single project, right? You can do that so easily now. But I didn't want to do that. I wanted it to sound personal. And honestly, there were a couple points during recording this where I went over five, right? I had like 10 tracks for a song. And I deleted the other 5 tracks because I was like, this is too much. It's too busy. It's not what I want. This is what I kind of did on the last 2 albums. This is what I did on St. Clair. Plainfield Tapes really was supposed to be like, yes, we have these other parts going on in the songs. But, if I was to tour, I've always been at a point where I could do a full band tour. I could do an acoustic tour. But these songs were really designed to be catered to that, like, sitting in front of people with just one acoustic guitar and like talking to them and going through that. And, we can get into like the musicality of that with none of the songs on Plainfield Tapes using a standard tuning. They're all in either open D or open D sharp. And that was in part to accompany myself over a bass line. And also in part
as an extra track? Or
no,
while
just
you're
to
playing?
Like while I'm playing. So like a lot of what you hear on Plainfield Tapes that is the finger picking style might sound like it's 2 different guitars, but frequently is one guitar. And even if you took out, the other 4 tracks out of that 5 tracks that I'm using, still you'd be getting most of that from that first track because I started using Open D is kind of a way of freeing myself from, when we were talking last time about St. Clair, I was talking about writing a lot on St. Clair. I was writing on piano, and that was to kind of make it so that I wasn't overthinking like, going C to F is just too basic of a thing to do in a song. Cause when you understand music theory, you start correcting yourself and being like, I can't do like the thing that is like the standard folk thing. Right. And going to open D tuning was a similar thing of me being like, I don't really know what's going on. Like if I take a minute and I think about this, I'm like, oh, I'm playing a C chord or I'm playing, like a C with these notes over it.
There's nothing more discouraging though, that when you go through one of those open tuning things and you're like, I did it. Now what are these chords are playing? Oh no, they're C and F.
but but then you have that childhood part of yourself where you first pick up a guitar and you're playing and you're like, it sounds so good. And then you for some reason we get to a point where we start correcting ourselves and we're like, oh, we need to be more sophisticated than that.
Right.
And, maybe we do. Cause like, honestly, like a lot of songs off of like my first album, Foreign Fields, were like CF, using a lot of A minors, using those like general shape forms. And, I was having a conversation with my girlfriend recently about, how she was saying that essentially Foreign Fields is her favorite album that I've done still. And so, I don't know if that's like a bad thing to do those, but like I personally got, bored with those shapes. And then I did a similar thing with Jake's where I started experimenting more with capos, some different tunings, a lot more stacking of large things. So if you look at the project files for Jake's, those were the like 10 to 20 track type things where I was spending like a week in the studio with me, Mike Meadows, and Aber Moore, just tracking on top of things and layering. And, I love that sound. And that was, again, I think that I don't know if I have achieved it, but I like to think now that I've achieved the fact that for each of the projects I've done, I haven't tried to repeat the same thing twice. I have tried to be like, what can I do next? Like the first album, Foreign Fields, was like a pretty straightforward like rock album. Jake's had rock elements, brought in some more dreamy elements. And I was like really interested in layering, whereas, a lot of Foreign Fields was more just live track, and Jake's was live track too. But less so. I did give myself more space to work with. And then these, again, St. Clair I put a single mic in the center of the room and recorded around that. You were there for those days when we were recording a lot of those songs, and very different. And then this was honestly 90% first takes. For almost all of the songs off of Plainfield tapes were first take recordings. And it was honestly, I would go back and record another take and it didn't have the same feeling to it because, honestly, Juliet is a song that I turned on the recorder and wrote the song. Me writing that song is that track on the record or on the EP. And it's that feeling when you're writing a song and you start to tear up because you don't know why you're tearing up, but there's like a connection that you're feeling. It's a connection that you felt to music before, that you listened to and that you connected with. And I wanted to hone in on that. I wanted to be a lot more introspective on this. I think that St. Clair had this element to it, and I'm not trying to talk too much about my previous projects here, but it's just interesting to compare, honestly, because I haven't really thought about this until talking to you. But there was like a directness to that and we talked about it. It was this idea of a sense of love and different forms of love. Was the whole concept of that. The Plainfield tapes was really just introspective, deep, personal storytelling. You might notice that each name, each song name is a person's name. It's not actually tied to a person. Like there isn't a Jenny, there's not a Juliet. The only actual there are two names on there that are real people, but one song is Walker, which references one of my closest friends, who I think that through the time I've known them have helped me through some of the hardest times I've had, and has really been someone who's always been supportive. There's a line in there where I'd never really directly referenced people before. A lot of times in my songs, even when I release songs like Victoria, it's more like either talking about a feeling of something or someone, or, an amalgamation of different people. But this was a lot more direct where, I was referencing, Walker says, let's go downtown, buy some drugs and find a better place. It's a very direct sense of when you have someone who you can rely on and who would be someone who you can call at any moment, be like, hey, I'm not okay right now. I need help. And that's not something that's easy to admit ever, but I think that I've gone through a lot of stuff, and we talked about it a little bit on, the last time we talked on this, but, I'm someone who definitely struggles with depression. I struggle with anxiety, just I think a lot of people in the modern world do, and musicians in general.
Do you have specific anxiety triggers? And do you have...
Not so much...
Go ahead.
Not so much specific. No, you're good. This is the issue with the Zoom. But not so much specific triggers. I think I have more generalized anxiety. But I've had anxiety attacks before, and I think there was a time when I wouldn't say that. Yeah. But it's 100% true. Yeah. And I think that, there was a long period of time where that was a lot more, stigmatized. But I think that a lot of half of the musicians we look up to were severely depressed half of their lives and had horrible anxiety. And, a lot of the drugs and alcohol issues that ran rampant through, a lot of the 80s, 90s was people trying to deal with anxiety and depression, but that not really being a thing that we would talk about or ever confront. It just was oh, I'm not supposed to feel that way, so I'm just going to drink it away.
Yeah. Yeah. Or smoke it away or snort it away or some kind of thing.
Smoke it away. Yeah. Exactly. So I think that, I think that there was, going back to the EP, it's not about that. it's honestly kind of joyous. To a certain extent, it's a sad record. It sounds sad. It has a lot of like more melancholy elements, but it's also, I think, like it's more it's more being okay with things and accepting things.
Yeah,
and I think that it was a lot of writing about that. Some writing about relationships, the struggles of relationships. I mean, like lines like in Jenny where I kind of talk about like the end of a relationship where two people know that they're, something's done, but you kind of don't want to admit it yet. Or you both know that one of you needs to say it at some point, but you don't.
Yeah.
I spent a long time writing, these are still super vague. Like none of the songs, again, other than like, Walker directly referencing someone, none of these are directly referencing any specific time or specific thing. But I do think that it's more specifically talking about direct feelings rather than like St. Clair being about love and like this broader sense of it.
Right.
This was a little bit more like, what does this moment feel like for you?
Right.
Like, how do you process through that? How do you get through that? In interpersonal relationships, also relationships with friends, or, I've watched so many friends who are like just really close friends of mine go through really, really bad breakups and like have really hard times. And, like that's even one of the hardest things to watch is like, someone who you like love so dearly, clearly being miserable over something and being like, how do I like, there's nothing I can do here except for be there for this person. So, it's a difficult question, but I feel like I started trying to talk about that a little bit more. And it was, I through like writing these songs, more than any set I've written before. And I mean, you're one of the first people to actually have heard like the full EP. And so I'm curious, like what your thoughts are, or like what your reaction to it was. But I do think that this is the first time where it's very clear that this is a set of songs that is cohesive and has a sound to it. It has a tuning to it. It has like ideas behind it that are cohesive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Very, very much so. That's why I was saying that like what you started in St. Clair, you've realized now. Like whatever that sound is that you were going for, at least I think this is what you were going for. It sounds like you're in it right now.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that I think that I just, there was this point in time, because again, a lot of the songs from this were written around the same time that I wrote the next project I'm working on. And I think there was a question I had at the beginning where I was like, are these going to go together? And then I realized at some point that these were a set of songs that could not go with anything else. Like they had to just be a self-contained release.
Right.
These also were the only songs written in this style. And I don't know if I'll ever come back to this style of this open tuning thing, because I haven't really written anything since this set of songs in this style. The last song that I wrote for this was Juliet, and it was while I was up here. And I finished the other songs while I was up here, but most of them were pretty much there. But Juliet was the only one that I like really wrote start to finish up here. And I haven't really returned to this style of writing or that open tuning again, because it felt very enclosed in a way. The only song that was originally just going to be left off of the project, which I sent you yesterday, because it was
Claire.
a last minute decision, was Claire.
Yeah.
Which was a song that I tried to record. I had one demo of Claire from probably, I think, January or February. And it was like, and again, Claire is also, funnily enough, not related to St. Clair at all, completely separate from that. And then I also have a really close friend of mine named Claire, totally separate from that either. Although I was writing with her the other day when I kind of announced that there was going to be this single named Claire. And I was like, I'll give you just that. We'll say it's dedicated to you. But it was supposed to be left off because I could not re-record it in a way that I liked close enough to the demo. And the demo's recording was still so crappy compared to everything that I learned that I couldn't put that on. And then I just had this thing where I kept thinking about this song again and again. And then I finally just like sat down and recorded it. And I that like a couple weeks ago and made the decision to mix that, master it. And then, you know, I made this decision to put it on a CD, which I made I was anguishing over whether I should print CDs. I didn't print CDs for St. Clair. I'd print CDs for the last 2 records. I did do that, but not for St. Clair. And I was not going to print CDs for this. And then because, you know, I feel like we're kind of moving further and further away from CDs, but I decided that I would do a 50 CD run. We're only going to print 50. You know, there's a shot we'll print more later, but I feel like this is probably pretty self-contained. They're really special printings. They, the CDs were designed to look like vinyl. Oh, that's cool. And they incorporate this bonus track that, you know, maybe one day it'll be released, but you know, if it's ever released on streaming services, it's going to be a long ways down the line because it really is meant to be, you know, at least a slight incentive for people to have some appreciation for CDs still, which I think that, you know, a lot of us have really gotten far away from CDs. Even I don't really buy CDs very often.
Yeah, I don't know who those people are. Also, you know what I don't understand? I don't understand cassettes. I mean, I understand and I appreciate that people are getting them, but is it just going to be a thing for a couple years and then everyone's going to have a bunch of cassettes and then? Yeah.
But it's because I don't think it's like vinyl. You see, my girlfriend, when she got this old Bonneville, Pontiac Bonneville, and it had a cassette player in it, and we had this whole strategy at first where we were like, we're only going to play cassettes in this car. We're only going to play cassettes. Like, we're going to do this, right? And we tried to buy cassettes, and we were like, this is a horrible idea. These break so easily.
Oh, really?
And they don't sound very good. You know, I'd be interested in doing a cassette release at some point. I've been thinking about maybe doing that for like the ephemeral nature of it.
That's the only thing I think that anybody really like, oh, I have this cassette. I don't think anyone's like, get my boombox.
And
Dave.
Honestly, I feel like that's probably what the CDs for this are going to be. Is like, I designed them to be like a beautiful piece that you could like have as like just a keepsake of this release. It's a beautiful design. You know, again, the CD itself is modeled after a vinyl. It has an exclusive photo on it.
Right.
You know, it has this one song on it. It really is meant to be more of a collector's thing. That's why I'm only doing 50 of them.
Hand number them and stuff.
Yeah, I think I might hand number them. It really is just the type of thing where it was like, I want to do something. And I personally want to, you know, I'm probably going to only sell 49 of them on the down low because I want to keep one for myself.
Yeah.
Because I really did only print 50 of them, literally. And so, you know, I wanted to have something like that. And I didn't really want to print vinyl. I didn't want to get into that for this. I feel like, you know, maybe there's a shot of me printing vinyl for the next record, but for an EP, I felt like it just wouldn't have been worth it for just like, you know, 4 or 5 songs. So it was like but I wanted to have something. I wanted to have some physical thing that, because I put so much work into this thing and I was obsessing over it for so long. And I spent, you know, so long recording it, so long mixing it, so long mastering it that I felt like it needed some kind of final, like even once I sent it to streaming services, it still didn't quite feel like I was like, there wasn't a resolution there.
Right.
In the sense that I needed it to be printed so that I could then be like, now I really can never touch you again because you are real.
Right. You can still tinker. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because you can tinker on something forever, but you have to hit some point eventually.
Yeah. So let me ask you this: as far as like recording, like the last 2 things you've done, a majority of it at least, and Plainfield you did totally by yourself. So you've done that, and you're going in to make this record, and you're going to do it with the full band. Are you going into a place with a producer and stuff, or an engineer?
I am going in and producing. I'm co-producing it.
Okay.
And I and the other producer are going to engineer it.
So you still have to work. You still have to do so who's the other producer? Can you say?
Someone very special.
Okay.
To me.
Okay.
And we'll talk about that next time.
Okay. Yeah.
But
because I got to get you back on here last time.
I think that it's exciting though. I'm excited about that. But, I do think that it will be very different from this, because I think that, again, I did the alone thing, and the pandemic has made me really tired of playing alone. Yeah. And so I'm ready to go into the studio with my friends and make some music together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there is something incredible about what, like when you were talking about the song that you were writing when you recorded it, Juliet, was that it?
Yeah. Yeah.
When you're doing that, there's to me there's equal greatness in both. I've done both, and I kind of go from one thing then to the other, because I'm like, I need to go to a place where there's a guy that knows what he's doing, or what she's doing, what they're doing,
Yeah. 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 And I think that I think that I bounce between the two as well. Cause I worked with Mark Addison on the first record, right. And then second record I worked on with Stuart Sullivan.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I worked with Frenchie Smith.
Yeah.
So I've worked with these guys who I love all of them in different ways.
And they can make a record.
They can, I mean, yeah, I'm not going to cuss, but they can really make a record.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they know what they're doing. But I think that with St. Clair and then with this, I really was part of me was almost I need to know how to do this, because I've done guitar work where I've done tracking for my house. I know how to do that. I have that set up. And how to do demos. I didn't really know how to mix or master before St. Clair, and I started learning over St. Clair, and then kind of spent months after St. Clair was released actually learning how to do it. Now it's something that I kind of, I'm not a professional in any way. Dave McNair mastered Foreign Fields. He's one of the best in the business. He's not even a comparison. There's zero comparables. But it was a thing where I was I want to understand how this works. I want to understand, what is this process? How can I do this process? And part of that was so that when I go in,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
It's trying to be a fly's dentist.
Yeah,
to me,
I wanted to also be able to, next time I go into the studio, because, I'm getting ready to do that. I didn't want to be the person in the studio where, and I'm fine with doing this. I'm fine with handing the reins over, but I do have a certain issue handing reins entirely over to someone else. And I wanted to be at a place where I could, go into a studio and know what was going on, know what everything did. And now I understand that. And so that's why, it's going to be a co-producing thing, is I understand how to mix, understand how to master, I understand those processes now in a way that also allows me more control over, I've started learning how to capture the sounds that I want to capture in the way that I want to capture them, whether that's a hi-fi sound or a lo-fi sound. And, I think that there are certain elements of St. Clair that were more lo-fi than this is. Uh-huh. And there are parts of this that are definitely still have lo-fi elements. Mm-hmm. There's obviously I was listening to an interview recently with Clairo, who was talking to someone on Apple Music. And she was talking about recording her latest album, and she was essentially saying, she was talking about Elliott Smith and how he used to record, where he would set up one mic, record vocals and guitar in one mic, and then would do the same thing over and doubling it. Mm-hmm. And that's how he would record. And I didn't know that. I fully had zero idea. and like I like Elliott Smith. He was never someone who I listened to a lot. I feel like I listened to a lot of people who listened to him a lot growing up. But he was someone who I always respected, and I've always loved his recording style. But I didn't know that I was recording like that until I heard that interview, and I was like, oh, that's what I've been doing.
I've told you that before, though.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about that. It, like the doubling of things, but like that direct thing of one microphone, like just a sing, and it's just, I mean, it's this, which is an AKG Lyra mic, and then over here, what kind of started making it in on recordings, which is a Tula microphone, which is essentially this company. They're amazing mics, actually. And I got this one for a really good eBay auction deal because the real ones are slightly more expensive, but really was a thing where it was this guy who owns, I can't remember what the microphone company is called, but it's a really like high-end boutique mics, like, like the $10,000 mics. And he wanted to make a mic that was, in the low hundreds. And he made the Tula mics and I got one for even cheaper. Which was lovely. And I recorded a lot on that too. And it's just a little mic. But I wanted to learn to do more with less and then go into the studio again and do less with more, I guess, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah. I think that, I do think that what I was saying is that, I think that this still has lo-fi elements, but is a lot more clean. And that was something that I didn't really know how to do well when I was recording St. Clair. So it wound up, I defaulted into a more lo-fi sound.
Right.
And this one, I understood how to record in a way that was clean and still had doubled vocals and still had those elements, but had more of a polished feel to them and had a uniformity to them that still each song feels unique, but it doesn't have a wild, like crazy EQ in one song that the other song doesn't have, or that kind of thing. And so I think I learned a lot doing that. And I, it is a thing where I'm now, I want to try and do some producing and kind of dip my toes into those fields now, because I have gotten to this point where I know how to capture a sound that I want to capture. And I want to kind of now start learning how to do that for other people as well, because it's,
sorry,
it's a thing. Yeah.
Sorry to be like one of our friends, but I'll do one with you. I would love to.
Awesome.
I'd like just do a tune.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah. It's something where I've just kind of, I've come a long way in what I used to do to now, to where I finally feel like, I have grown up as I've grown up in music to a way where I was always only on the side of being the musician playing for people, or in a studio and people were recording me. And I'm still, that is my main thing. Like music is my main thing. I'm doing grad school right now, which has been great during the pandemic, but music is what I love. And now I'm learning, how can I record myself in a way that sounds polished still? And then, also on the side, maybe start doing that for other people. Cause it is something where, I feel like I at some point hit a wall where I wasn't chasing another sound. I was trying to realize a sound
that you heard in your head
that I wanted to hear. Yeah, exactly. I was creating music that I wanted to listen to.
Totally.
And there are different versions of that. And I think that there's songs off of St. Clair that I'm really happy with, and I produce well in a way that I'm satisfied with. There's some that I wish I could have tweaked more. And, I think that there's a parallel also between, I sent you 7 Lives, which is the single that I put out around this release. And that's very lo-fi. And that was recorded directly below where I'm sitting right now on an old Steinway piano that is out of tune. And I set up the Tula mic on top of it and recorded it. And I was recording it to save to record later. And then I was sitting in the car listening to the demo while I was waiting for my girlfriend to get out of class. And she got in the car and she was like, we were sitting there for a minute and she's like, wait, is this you? And I was like, oh yeah. And she was like, this sounds like really good. And I was like, I guess it could just be a lo-fi release. And like, that's cool. And I was really happy with that. And it kind of gave me a little bit of a boost to be like, why not put this out there? And I might re-record that in a full band setting eventually. I think I've also reached a point where I'm like, I could do multiple versions of a song and they sound entirely differently. But entirely different. But there is, I feel like I've started exploring this broader range of like doing recording for full band, recording for just myself, polished, and recording just like, I'm, just recording in the backseat of my car, like old car seat headrest records, which I also love.
Yeah, I love those. And it gets to a point too where like, it at this point, to be an artist that follows an artistic path and not a commercial conformity path, is someone that's trying to pave new roads and challenge yourself and move around, to have sort of this it's almost like these last two EPs are almost like mixtapes in a way. Like how a rapper would use a mixtape. I completely
agree.
Yeah. Like this is,
to find your path.
Yeah.
To find your
and
sound.
Just to keep on exploring new things,
developing. Yeah, exactly. And I think that there's kind of those two pathways an artist can take, where you can go the path of, working with other people who know what they're doing forever, which is something that, I've would never have even dreamed that I would get to work with people I've worked with, and I would never be where I am without the people who I've worked with. And, I have so many artists that I love and completely respect that have only done that. But I think that I'm someone who needs to know how something works. I always took things apart as a child to try and figure out the inner workings. And I hit a point where I was like, oh, I need to understand, because I always knew from working in the studio. I've given this anecdote before, but I was in the studio with Stuart Sullivan recording Jake's, and it was the second day we were tracking, and he's leaning down in one of his many racks of phenomenal recording equipment that I will never even dream of owning, turning knobs, and he stands up all of a sudden. And I'm like, what's going on? Because he's like, it's like this like alert stand up. And he turns to me and he goes, William, I understand now. I understand what you're doing. It's I didn't understand before, but I thought you were just doing a dark sound, but I understand what you're sonically doing now.
Right.
And that was a moment where I realized that what I was doing, the way that I was setting up my amp, wasn't a normal thing to do.
Right.
And then, I think that with this EP, I still did that, and I kind of embraced that, but I learned to do that without boosting the lows all the way up.
Right.
And I was it's balanced. I figured out how to balance that sound. And I think that was something that I needed to learn how to do myself, so that I would understand what that was, and so that I could still achieve the sound that I wanted.
Right.
Via different methods. Because I don't know. I really do not want to come across like I'm like trying to toot my own horn at all, because I don't think I know what I'm doing very much at all. But I do feel like I've started to be like, oh, I have a different sound and I understand how to get that sound now. Right. It was something I didn't know before, but and I don't know if I'll ever fully know, but we got to keep trying to get closer to whatever is in our head.
Yeah. And I might've been Mark Hallman might have said this to me, but there was somebody that was like, as far as like EQ goes, like it shouldn't be able to be boosted from where it sits in the middle.
Yeah.
Because it gives you a false impression that if you do turn up the bass, but you don't realize that subtraction is actually what makes that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It actually took a real, like, I would do that same thing. If I had any kind of EQ, I would just turn shit up as opposed to turning stuff down. Like, oh, that high end's too high. Let me turn up the bass. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I did not. Yeah, exactly. There's a nuance to things that you don't understand when you're young, and then you learn them, and you're like, "What was I doing this whole time?"
Yeah, but that subtraction
like,
thing.
Why was I just?
Yeah, it's almost like someone teaching you. Like, it's almost like someone just like taking your blinders off. Like, oh no, you just turn this stuff down. You're like, oh, that's how it works.
It's literally, and it's honestly, it's an abstraction of less is more, which is like, again, I feel like I'm constantly now saying these things that are like horrible things that are like cliche, but like the older I've got, the more I've realized there's a reason why those things are cliche and people say them.
Yeah.
Is that they're true.
Yeah.
They're 100% true.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
Yeah. And so that was the big thing for me, was learning how to EQ something. Another thing was learning to run it through a tape machine. And what does that do other than I'm like, oh, it makes it sound better. Why does it make it sound better? What is it doing? And then it's like, oh, it's doing these delay things. It's distorting the audio in this way. And that adds this thing that we call warmth to it, that you can also turn on a knob on your iPad
right.
And that says warm up. It's tweaking these EQ things where it's distorting your vocal in this way. It isn't a noticeable distortion other than the fact that it gives it a specific sound.
Right.
It's a mind blowing thing when you start learning those cues that you didn't understand before.
Totally. On a different note, you played some shows. You came down here and you played some shows.
I did.
Yeah. I saw your dad's first show back. It was great.
Oh yeah, I saw your post. Yeah. It's great.
I forgot how loud. I think he was extra loud that night, but it was loud. Like, I remember being like, wow, this is like really loud.
I can tell you the first show I did back, I definitely had a twin reverb, probably at 7. Which, for those of you out here who are not musicians, a twin reverb should be played around 4, maybe 3.
Yeah.
And I was playing very loudly, and it was the funnest time I'd had in a long time.
Well, your dad your dad was like, I thought he was going to freak out at some point. He was so happy.
Playing the first 2 shows that I did back were the most ecstatic I've been. There is nothing on earth even close to the feeling of guitar amps, bass amp, and drums vibrating on stage.
Nothing like it.
There's nothing that will ever feel the same as that.
Nope.
And there's no performance that will feel the same as that. It gives you energy.
Right. That's what I don't understand about bands that use tracks and shit. I mean, I understand the financial aspect of it, but I don't understand what fun could it be to not have those instruments moving air. Actually 100%. Moving air. Yeah.
I like the fact that something could go wrong. I really love the fact that someone could play a wrong note.
I do too.
Or that the hi-hat could fall over, or you'd have to tighten it, or that a string could break. And honestly, that transfers over to acoustic too, because I love doing the full band thing, and the more and more, during the pandemic, I've learned to do acoustic more and more. Right. Doing a couple acoustic shows, and then having to record acoustically and having to do everything myself. And I appreciate that too. And that's what a lot of shows that I'll do around this release, presuming that I we don't know what's happening with COVID anymore.
No,
I'm hoping for the best in the next month. I'm hoping that, shows I'm planning on doing around this release, a lot of which are not announced yet, and they might be announced when this is out, but are going to happen. But I've fallen in love with the direct connection of playing an acoustic just to a room of people. And I fell in love a long time ago with playing, through two giant amplifiers, and, taking a Bigsby all the way down. And, just like there's like two ends of the spectrum, but both have become just as enjoyable for me. And I think that was like me evolving as an artist. I think that I didn't appreciate acoustics when I was young. I think a lot of us don't. We don't appreciate the nuance of that.
Right.
But there is nothing like that, right? I mean, there's nothing. I mean, this entire EP was recorded on, again, this mic, me, and the one guitar I had up here, which is a guitar that I should not have flown with, but I did, is a 62 J50 that already has cracks in it that were repaired a long time ago. But there's nothing that sounds like that guitar, and like me just singing with that guitar, because they have like this harmonious element to them. And I think that when you're younger, you're more focused on what is this, like, what is the note, what is the sound, and not what is the nuanced undertones of what I'm doing. And that is something that I for years, I played with a huge pedal board. I've started assembling a big pedal board again for when I'm doing live shows, because I feel like I can use them in a way that is better than I ever did before. And I think that when I first started, doing guitar work for other people, that was the thing that people were really drawn to, was they noticed I was doing something different with pedals as far as stacking reverbs and delays and ambience. But during the pandemic, I learned to take all of that away and plug directly in. And how can I make it give the same feeling, just that? Right. And I learned a lot of that through playing, we talked last time, like I kind of cleared house on a lot of like older gear I had and stuff that I just wasn't playing, and kind of just put that into a couple of things that were, really like my like lifers, which is like that J50, and then the number one like electric I play now, which is a Starfire from 67. And like that going directly into like a Vox amp, like there's nothing like that sound. And it has like, it has these ringing notes under it. It has a warmth to it. The first electric show I did back, there wasn't full band, but I just was playing electric, was at South Congress Hotel with two of my best friends, Cameron Riggs, who is, we can talk about this in a second, but he's the one person who is on this EP other than me. Kind of. I'll give a brief anecdote to that in a second. But and another like just best friend of mine who I've been writing with a lot recently, Jeremy Nail, who is truly just one of my best friends now. We recently I was on vacation in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, with my family and with my girlfriend, and him and another close friend of ours. And so I did a show with them. Cameron and Jeremy at South Congress Hotel, and that was the first time I played live again. I set up a full pedal board for it, and then I was about to leave for the show, and I was like, no, I'm going to bring my acoustic, I'm going to bring the Starfire, and I'm going to bring an amp and a volume pedal. And that was the entire setup. And I used a little bit of reverb on the amp, and it sounded the same as I did. And I just feel like I had to learn. I don't feel like I was ever hiding behind, something that I was playing through. I just thought that I needed that to achieve a sound. Right. And then I think that I, at some point, realized you don't need that to sound a certain way. But you can use a delay and reverb to create a certain sound, which is still something I do. And it's still something that people come to me to ask me to play guitar to make that sound. Right. It's very specific. Yeah. And I that was the first time, and we were talking about like some kind of signature that I have. And that was the first thing that I think that people started noticing was different, was that I would do these, like swell guitar stuff that was, me essentially just sending this Jag that is still one of my main guitars, but again, not the thing I play as much anymore. But it's like one of the two. It's that and the Starfire. And I would just play that through reverb and through delay with a long delay, decay on it, and the reverb pretty much all the way up. So I'm only getting the wet signal.
Right.
And people started coming to me and being like, hey, would you like play on this recording, or would you play live with us now? Because I was doing something that was different, and they were like, oh, I don't, no one's doing that sound. Like how are you doing that? And I love doing that. And then I, at some point, was like, oh, but what is the other end of that? And, I got so used to playing acoustic that I was like, oh, maybe I don't need the pedals, because if I'm playing acoustic guitar, I'm not running through anything.
Right.
And this is still sounding the way that I want it to sound. So what if I just plug my guitar into the amp? Then what happens?
Yeah.
And now I'm in the process of adding all the stuff back in and being like, oh, I have this tool in my toolbox. If I can, send everything through delay and reverb, and it sounds awesome. I love that sound more than a lot of things. I can also turn everything off and just have the guitar straight in and, just play with volume, play with tone. And, it's like Neil Young's whole setup is, right. Do you know very much about like his amp setup?
No.
He uses this thing. I can't remember what the name is. I think it's like the twirler or something. But essentially, Neil Young doesn't play with any pedals. He has, I think it's an old Tweed amp with this contraption that sits on top of that contraption, and the contraption spins knobs on his amp. So when he boosts to play a guitar solo, he essentially just boosts via pressing that, and it turns gain up and level up a little bit on the amp.
So it gives you the distortion.
And so,
yeah,
it gives you the distortion that a distortion pedal does in a different way.
Right.
It just drives the amp. But, I think that there's a certain thing to be said of like, being able to play with the full pedal board, but also being able to understand what are the pedals doing and how can I do something similar to that without any of that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, man, I hope there's some guitar players listening to this show where people won't know what we were just talking about at all. Dude, I'm sorry, I've got to run, but your EP comes out, Plainfield Tapes, on August 20th. People can go to williamharriesgraham.com to find out when you're doing shows. But so far, you have some shows planned. You'll announce them if it feels safe, and you won't if it doesn't.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And also, I have a music video coming out for the EP, which I'm pretty excited about as well.
I love those videos, by the way.
Probably at the beginning of. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, those are. But yeah, just a quick mention. There are 2 videos with again. I mentioned it before, but my girlfriend Ellis, who's a dancer for Ballet Austin, and then a close friend of ours who's also a dancer for Ballet Austin. Katie Deitch, who they both were up here. Well, obviously Ellis is up here, but Katie came up for a weekend and we shot and filmed that, which was pretty fun. And it was kind of very different video from anything I've done before.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It sounds like fun. I mean, they're fucking great. I'm glad, you know what I mean? Sorry to say that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm very really fucking lucky to have the people in my life that I do, and to have, the collaborators that I do. Cause the EP was very singular, very solo, and, having them come up for that, and having, working with my girlfriend on that. And she also is the person who shot the, the cover photo for the album. So kind of in post-production, they came in a little bit and had a little bit of the collaboration outside of that, kind of solo, siloed away sphere.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, man, when do you come back?
I come back on August 4th. Yeah, okay. Soon. Very soon from now.
Next week. Awesome. Well, good. Well, I'd love to see you. We can get together and have a little coffee at an outside place like Cosmic or something. Be good to hang out.
Love that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been
so
a while.
Good to hang out. Yeah, I miss you, dude.
Well, it's great catching up with you, and congratulations on really achieving the sound you were going for. You You can really tell. And it's such a gorgeous record, and you're such an amazing songwriter. And again, I know I've told you this before. I don't know if I'm the best judge of it because I just, like, I want it to be good. You know what I mean? I never come at you like, what did he do this time? You know what I mean? It's always like, oh, he's got something to do. So, but other people love you too. So it's not just me. But yeah, man, congratulations.
I'm blessed.
And yeah, and people can go to WilliamHarriesGraham.com.
The world coming from you.
Oh, you're welcome, man.
Yep.
And follow you on your socials and stuff. And let's touch base when you get back into town.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. Good talking to you, man.
Good talking to you too. I'll talk to you later.
There's a picture on your wall of the first girl that you love.
All right, that's William Harries Graham. Get out there and pick up his brand new EP that just came out last Friday, Plainfield Tapes. Go to William Harries Graham for all your William Harries Graham needs. I love that guy. I do. I love him as an artist. I'm a fan of his as a musician, and I'm really, really, really proud to call him my friend. I love him. All right? Get out there and get involved with that stuff. Hopefully you've heard the EP because we talked a lot about it, right? All right, gang, don't forget when you're out there checking out WilliamHarriesGraham.com, don't forget that you can like and subscribe to and follow our podcast wherever it is that you find podcasts. New shows every week, all the time. New shows every week, 2 new shows a week, sometimes 3, sometimes 5 when I'm going crazy. That's right. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, Overcast, Stitcher, anywhere you find podcasts. New shows every Tuesday and every Friday, sometimes more. And don't forget to like our Facebook page. Facebook, How Did I Get Here on Facebook? Get over there and check that out. Yeah, man, you'll see a picture of me and William Harries Graham. It's actually an old photo because I haven't seen him in person in quite a while, but I'm looking forward to seeing him at some point. All right, thank you for your well wishes. Hopefully this coronavirus, pray for a negative test today. Not pray, you know what I mean, but send some good vibes for the negative test today. All right, have a great day, whatever it is you're doing. Enjoy your week. Let's get down.
I don't care if you sleep all day. Just tell me that